Welcome to Bibliophiles Anonymous, episode 44. I'm Denise.
And I'm Jess.
And this is kind of a bonus episode in a way.
Sort of.
Kind of.
Because we talk so much.
Well, yeah, because we found out that we just had way too much to say about Deathly Hallows. I mean, wow.
I figured we would have a long episode. I didn't know we were going to talk quite that much.
No, so we're not going to really say much else except just hope you enjoy this second half because we really had a whole lot of fun talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, I think we pick up right after the escape from Malfoy Manor. So
I think that you said that where we ended.
Yeah.
Where you last one. So
she's
the one that edits this, so I don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just did it like a few days ago and I can't remember, so you can tell where my brain is. Oh well. So yeah, hope you enjoy this second half, and we will have a new episode next week. So enjoy.
Yay!
They finally decide that Bellatrix freaking out that they had been in her vault was something important. That there must have been something going on in there. It couldn't have been just the Sword of Gryffindor, because why would they care so much? So they talk to Ollivander and they're trying to find out some more information about the Elder Wand. But they're also asking a little bit about the wands that they had taken, because now this is something that's important and you don't find out how important until later in the book. But
till the
very end of the book. Before they left Malfoy Manor, when they're fighting, now they don't have wands because their wands were taken from them, but Draco is holding his wand and a bunch of other wands that had been taken from various people, and Harry dives at him and they fight, and he grabs this whole handful of wands and takes them. And if he...
Well, actually, he Expelliarmused him.
Did he?
Didn't? I'm pretty sure he actually used Expelliarmus and all the wands flew at him, because if he hadn't have, it wouldn't have changed the wand's allegiance.
Because I thought he just grabbed them out of his hand. I'm going to find out.
You may know.
Okay, they drop the chandelier. You know, he does take the wands, actually physically take them from Draco, because the chandelier falls. Dobby drops the chandelier and it lands on Bellatrix, or he aims it for Bellatrix anyway. And Ron jumps up and pulls Hermione away, and Harry took his chance. He leapt over an armchair and wrested the 3 wands from Draco's grip, pointed all of them at Greyback and yelled "Stupefy," so he shoots Greyback 3 times with the Stupefy, which is pretty awesome. So he actually grabs them out of his hand. So it doesn't have to be a magical means of disarming, it just has to be disarming.
I thought at some point he actually did do Expelliarmus on Draco, though.
Maybe he does at some point, but it wasn't there. And that was the point, because it was the point in Malfoy Manor where he fought Draco and won his wand away from him. That was the point there where he starts using Draco's wand at that point, because that's when the wand switched allegiance. Which is a big deal. And again, because J.K. Rowling does this all the time, it's this little, teeny, tiny, seemingly insignificant thing.
Yeah, that's going to be earth-shatteringly important by the end of the book.
I mean, seriously, she's so good at doing that.
She really is.
Because I remember she did say in an interview that she wanted basically the key to, saving the world to be as insignificant as a fist fight between 2 teenage boys. And it wasn't really even a fist fight, but
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it really is. It's one of those things that when you get to the end and Harry starts putting it together, you start going, oh.
Yeah, like my mind blown.
I mean, she does that so many times throughout the series, these small things that come back. I mean, that you have the information. It's there. You have the information to figure this out. She has given you the tools. You just need to put it together. But I didn't put together the one thing, I will admit.
No, I didn't either. I don't think very many people did. In fact, I remember the first time when I read it, when they got to the end, I was just kind of going, wait, I can't follow that. Let's go back and read it again. Okay, this happened, this. Oh, okay. Wait,
Yeah.
I need to read it again. Hang on.
Well, that's just like, and I'm finally going to mention this, and I'm going to say what it is. That's just like the one thing that I did figure out that I think a lot of people missed is that Harry and Voldemort are related.
Very distantly, but yes.
Very decently, they are both descended from the
Which
Peverells.
is the three brothers.
Right. And I actually picked up on that. I was like, wait a minute. But that, and I actually, when I finished it, I went back and got Half Blood Prince and read through the pensive stuff till I found the relevant memory, which is when they go back to see when the guy from the ministry goes to see Marvolo Gaunt. And Marvolo Gaunt said he was descended from the Peverells.
Yeah. And that's where he got the ring from.
That's where the ring came from, which has the resurrection stone.
So I guess he's related to the middle brother then.
Right. Well, then you find out Harry is descended from
the younger brother.
Ignotus. Yeah. The one with the invisibility cloak, because it was handed down father to son, mother to daughter.
Yeah.
It was kept in the family. So they're both descended from the Peverell family.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Well, but we were told that the pureblood families were all kind of interrelated. So it's not that surprising. It's just kind of a fun connection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and a lot of people are going to miss it because we're talking about the Peverell family, and it's made a big deal that Voldemort is descended from Salazar Slytherin. And it's made a big deal about the Gaunts, but it's only that one time that it's mentioned that he's descended from the Peverells. Right. And you get so caught up in the idea that Harry and Voldemort are both half-bloods that you forget that their wizard half of their bloods was pure blood. Right. So you kind of get lost and don't really make the connection. But yeah, they were distantly related, which she did it. It was so subtle and so easy to not put that together.
Yep. That's what she does.
She likes to do that.
She's good at it, too.
She really is. But anyway.
Moving on. You find out that, because Harry's been kind of without a wand, or without one that really works well for him, but for some reason he's finding that Draco's wand is working pretty good for him. And Ollivander tells him that since he had won it from Draco, that the allegiance to the wand might have changed, and you learn a little bit about how the wands work, and they're semi-sentient. They kind of have opinions, and like you said, the wand chooses the wizard.
Yeah.
And so...
And apparently they can choose to switch their allegiance. Mm-hmm.
So, a new plan has started coming up, that they're going to try and break into Gringotts and find out what's in the Lestrange's vault. Crazy plan, but they're going to give it a try. They have a hair from Bellatrix, which they're going to use to make Hermione look like Bellatrix. They have Griphook giving them some idea as to what to expect and how to get around certain things. And that's all they got.
Yeah.
And this is something else that I thought was well done in the movie. The same way that the three actors that played Harry, Ron, and Hermione under Polyjuice in the Ministry, I thought Helena Bonham Carter's version of Hermione playing her was so funny.
It was great.
Because she's, I mean, you have her under Polyjuice, and just the exact way that she acted. And I know that they had Emma perform the scene and then kind of watch it back, and Helena watched it back and kind of took note of how she did things and the way that her face, like there was something about the way that her face was tilted, or just little things like that. I mean, little microscopic things, but it was so funny to watch. And let's see, so she's Bellatrix, and Ron has been given a beard and longer hair, and actually he looks very good with a beard. But, so he's disguised, and Harry and Griphook are underneath the invisibility cloak. Well, as soon as they get there, things go wrong.
Yeah, it kind of starts falling apart.
As you knew it would. But the goblins suspect something is not right because the wand that they're using is the one that they took from Bellatrix, and Bellatrix has reported that that one has been stolen and missing. So that was a really stupid idea.
Kinda.
You know, but they use the Imperious Curse, which is really, well, it's not the first time Harry's used an Unforgivable, but the first time he's used it and it works. Because you have to mean it. And at that point, all he wanted to do was do something to try and save his friends. So he meant it. And they get the goblins to take them down to the vaults. But they don't have a lot of time because they know that they're intruders. So there's going to be people that are going to be coming after them soon. So they find the dragon. There's a dragon down there, which Hagrid had always suspected there were. And they make it down to the Lestrange's vault, and things go even more wrong.
Yeah, I mean, their Polyjuice plan falls apart. They go through the waterfall that removes all magical enchantment. They do get into the vault. There's curses on all the treasure, so that it's really hot, and if you touch it, it splits into like 7 more.
Yeah.
So they're like up to their neck in hot burning treasure, but the cup is there.
Yeah, they do get it, and the only thing is that they get it, but then Griphook makes off with the sword, so they have it, but they have no way of destroying it.
Right. He kind of scarpers with the sword because he didn't trust Harry to actually keep his word. Which, to be honest, Harry wasn't really planning on it, technically. You know, he's like, you can have it when we get done, but I don't know when that'll be.
But, anyway, so they're able to escape because they go back to the dragon and climb on its back and help it escape from Gringotts, which...
Yeah.
Crazy plan, but it's just crazy enough to work. Yeah. And one of my favorite scenes or favorite screenshots from the movie is after the dragon gets out and he's just sitting like on the rooftops in Diagon Alley and like smelling the fresh air, and you just look and you can tell that's one happy dragon. I mean, he's almost smiling. It's the funniest thing because you're in the middle of this big chaotic scene and the dragon's attacking and they're breaking things and it's, I mean, tromping through Gringotts and everybody's running trying to get away from it. And then he takes off and he's flying and all of a sudden he just stops and it's like, oh, look at this. This is good.
Yeah, the dragon's got to stop and smell the roses.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's so funny. This little personality quirk that they gave the dragon. I love that.
Is this when Harry realized... It's right after they get off the dragon that Harry gets the vision that Voldemort realized he's destroying Horcruxes, isn't it? And he realizes that he's right, as he's been telling Hermione, that there's one at Hogwarts and they have to go back.
Yeah, because Voldemort specifically thinks, well, the one at Hogwarts, that one's safe. That nobody knows where that one is, so that one's safe. I need to check on the other ones. And so that's what he does.
And he starts checking on these other ones and you know, oops, some of them have been destroyed.
Oh my.
And he didn't feel it.
Yeah, because he expected to, if something had happened to them, that he would know. And the diary got destroyed when he was still not fully a person. So he thought, well...
Yeah, he thought that was because, you know, he didn't have a corporeal form at the time.
Yeah, so maybe that was why. But the other ones, he was like, well, that's not good. And... So one by one, he's going back and he's checking. So he found out that the ring he had hidden at the Gaunt's old house, and that was gone. So Harry can feel him traveling to the cave, and he knows that they don't have a lot of time. So they apparate directly into Hogsmeade and set off basically an alarm.
Yeah, the caterwauling charm.
And they're trying to hide and escape from the Death Eaters that are all over the place. And there's Dementors there too. And somebody says, Potter, get in here. And Harry goes, because what else is he going to do? And it turns out that it's the the bartender at the Hogshead, and that's where they are. And I love the part in the book where the Death Eaters are coming after the bartender, who we don't know is Aberforth yet, but he's coming after them, and he was like, "We saw the Patronus, we saw that it was a stag," and Aberforth's like, "It's a goat, you idiot!"
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Well, maybe it was a goat, I don't know," but they didn't want to pick a fight with him. And so you find out that Aberforth and Albus did not have the best of relationships, and he really didn't have a whole lot of use for his older brother because just of the way that he basically gave up on his family for the things that he wanted to do. And you did find out earlier that Dumbledore and Grindelwald had been friends, really good friends, and that they had these plans of, basically taking over, having the Wizarding World take over, and for the greater good. That they were going to do it so that they wouldn't have to hide, and then the Muggles, who really were inferior, would. I don't know if they thought that the Muggles would like worship them or something like that, but they would be subservient. And Aberforth basically thought that Albus was so smart and so brilliant and didn't want to be drugged down by his wayward brother and his crazy sister, because their sister had been attacked by Muggle boys and was never right since.
Yeah, she was afraid to use her magic, but she couldn't help it. It would get to the point where she couldn't stop it, and it would just kind of burst out of her. She couldn't control it.
And
can I just say, I wish J.K. Rowling would actually write the entirety of the life and lives of Albus Dumbledore.
That would be awesome.
And publish it like she did with the school books and the Tales of Beetle the Bard.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I would buy it. I would read it.
But anyway, let's see. We have found out, well, we probably glossed over the fact, but we know that Voldemort now has the Elder Wand, too.
Yes. He broke open Dumbledore's tomb to get it.
And, which, just you. But anyway, Aberforth has a way to get into Hogwarts, and it's through the portrait of Ariana. And Ariana leaves her portrait and brings somebody back with her through this tunnel that's behind her portrait, and it's Neville. Neville is awesome. Let me just say that flat out. Neville is amazing. I love him. And he's been kind of the leader with him and Luna and Ginny. They've been kind of keeping up Dumbledore's army the whole time that the Death Eaters have been in charge of Hogwarts this whole year. Because, by the way, Hogwarts is still going on. It's
mandatory.
Yeah, it's not the same as it once was, but it's still going on. Snape was named as headmaster, which everybody hated that. And so you find out that there's a whole bunch of horrible things that are going on because there's no defense against the dark arts, there's just the dark arts, and they're taught to use unforgivable curses. They're expected to take part in punishments by casting the Cruciatus Curse on younger students, which Neville got roughed up pretty badly because he refused to do it. Go Neville.
Mm-hmm.
And they make it into, the tunnel leads to the Room of Requirement, which has expanded and expanded and expanded. So now it's basically looks like this big campsite because there's hammocks all over the place, and there's Gryffindors and Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs and
no
Slytherins, oddly enough. And they're all just kind of camped out in there because they can't. They're kind of in hiding and they can't go back out. And everybody in there, they're so excited to see Harry and Ron and Hermione too, but mostly they're excited to see Harry, and they're like, "All right, when are we gonna go fight?" And Harry's like, "Excuse me."
Come again.
That's not what I'm here for, but okay, I need to find something. And I loved this part in the movie. Like, okay, we need to find something. Okay, what do you need to find? We don't know. Well, where is it? We don't know that either.
Yeah, they didn't have a lot to work with.
And so he tries to explain that it's something that has to do with either Ravenclaw or Gryffindor. If there's like any kind of like artifact or something that has to do with either of them. And Luna says, well, it could be the lost diadem. Yeah, and that's probably what you're thinking of. And nobody knows. Well, they know what it is, but nobody's seen it. It's been gone for centuries.
Well, yeah, that in the movie they didn't know what it was, but in the book they had figured out that it was the diadem by then, hadn't they?
I don't think so. I don't think they had because Luna's trying to describe it and saying that her father was building a replica of it, and she was going to take Harry up to the Ravenclaw common room so that he could see what it looked like.
Yeah, but I thought they knew what it was at least by then. I don't know. I just finished it yesterday. You think I could remember?
Oh, this is what happens when you read so many books. It's like the little details, they don't always stick. But anyway, so he and Luna go up to Ravenclaw's common room. And their common room's actually different because instead of having a password, they have to answer like a riddle. Yeah. Which I think would be pretty bad if you're not good at riddles. But I guess if you're in Ravenclaw, you're good at riddles. Who knows? But they get in there and they see the statue of Rowena Ravenclaw, and they also find that one of the Carrows is waiting for them in there because they were told that Harry might try and get into the Ravenclaw common room. And bless her heart, I love Luna so much. She ends up stunning the Death Eater. And she was like, oh, this made more noise than I thought it would. And so her and Harry get back under the invisibility cloak, and because students are starting to come downstairs, and they're like, oh my gosh, look what happened. Oh, and they look really happy that this horrible Death Eater teacher's been stunned. And underneath the cloak, Luna's like, oh, look, they're pleased. I love that about her. She is just such a sweet little spirit. And
yeah, and the girl that played her in the movies was spot on.
Ivana Lynch, she was perfect. Oh my gosh.
She was born to be Luna.
She was. And the thing I like best about her is that she was such a big fan of the books that when she got the part, you could just tell that it was meant to be. That it was somebody who she was a fan. She was one of us who just happened to get lucky to be in the movies. So it was kind of neat. But let's see. Oh, McGonagall turns up. Or actually, no, the other Carrow, the brother or sister. I never can keep them apart. But the other Carrow shows up outside, and he can't get in, or she can't get in, because of the riddle. They can't figure it out.
I think Electo was in the common room, and Amicus was the one trying to get in, which means the girl was in the common room, and the boy was trying to get in. I think.
They're so indistinguishable because they're so horrible, it's hard to tell them apart.
Yeah, it's just the Carrows.
But McGonagall turns up and is like, why are you trying to get in there? And he was like, because Harry Potter was supposedly in there, and my sister just summoned the Dark Lord, and if we don't have Harry, then we're going to be in so much trouble. And I love McGonagall saying, why would he be in there? He's in my house.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't really think too much about the relationship between Harry and McGonagall but she was very protective of him and cared a lot about him, just, you know, like Dumbledore did. And she solves the riddle right away, and they go in there, and the Carrow is trying to figure out what to do to try and give an excuse to Voldemort. McGonagall's like, you're going to try and blame it on the kids? That's horrible. And Carol's like, I don't know, they're just, who cares? They're just kids. And he ends up spitting at her, which Harry just loses it and does he cast the Cruciatus Curse on him, I think? Because he's so mad that he would dare spit at McGonagall. And McGonagall was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? And well, like, that was really noble of you, but this isn't really a good idea for you to be here.
Yeah.
But he explains that he is on a mission for Dumbledore, and that he has something that he needs to do, and McGonagall's like, okay, let's go. And they're heading out, and they run into Snape, and McGonagall and Snape duel, which I was a little disappointed the way it was in the movie. I wanted more.
Yes. But I love the part in the book where everyone's like, in the Great Hall and what happened to Professor Snape? Well, he has to use the common expression, done
Yes.
fuck.
Yeah, because they fight and Snape makes a break for it, and that's the beginning of the Battle of Hogwarts.
Yes.
And there is so much going on during the Battle of Hogwarts.
There really is. I mean, everybody, they send all the underage kids home. All of the Weasleys show up, including Percy, who shows up and is like, I was such an idiot.
Which we said, yes, you were.
Well, that's basically what his brothers were like. Yes, you were, and
mm-hmm.
and they all show up to fight. They tell all of the kids that are over 17 that if they want to stay and fight, they can.
Well, and it wasn't just the Weasleys, because Aberforth gets really annoyed because everybody's coming through his pub, and
yeah, Remus and
like the Order
Tom
is coming through, and a whole bunch of other ex-students.
Somebody says Aberforth's getting kind of annoyed because we've turned his pub into a train station.
And you have the most random person I remember was Oliver Wood. It's like he's been gone for years, but he came back to fight for Hogwarts. And
I wish they got him back in the movie because he was kind of hot.
Yeah, that would have been nice. But the Death Eaters are outside, and Voldemort has arrived, and it's go time. I mean, there is just everything possible that could be going on. They mobilize all of the statues and the suits of armor to go and be an army, and McGonagall's always wanted to do that spell.
Yeah. Well, and when the Dark Lord tells them, give me Harry Potter and I'll let you all live, was it Penelope Clearwater?
No, it was Pansy Parkinson.
I know it was a Slytherin.
Well, Penelope's a Ravenclaw. No, it was Pansy Parkinson. She's like, he's just there, get him! And
like all three of the other houses stand up and point their wands at her.
No, we're done with this.
So McGonagall says, you can either stay and fight the school or you can get the hell out.
Yeah, basically.
And just frog marches all the Slytherins right out the door.
And, one of my favorite lines in this part where they kept almost intact in the movie, and it made me laugh so hard, was that Filch comes running out and he's like, students are out of bed, students were out of bed. And McGonagall turns to them, they're supposed to be out of bed, you blithering idiot.
Yeah.
They kept blithering idiot in there. I was so happy. But
it always makes me happy when a line shows up almost verbatim in the movie. I wish they'd have kept in Ron's line about Death having an invisibility cloak.
Yeah.
Yeah, for when he gets tired of running at people flapping his arms and shrieking.
Yeah,
So he can sneak up on them.
Gosh, there's so many things that come in. You have the Giants and the Acromantulas and all the Death Eaters, and then you have this smaller group of people, but they're aided by Grop. They have one sort of giant.
A small
little tiny giant. You have McGonagall, who's leading an army of desks that are running down the hallway. I wish they had shown that. Charge! I mean, come on, that's hilarious. And you have Neville and Professor Sprout that are throwing all manner of horrible plants, like mandrakes and venomous tentacula and everything else. They're throwing that over the walls. And my other favorite is Trelawney, who's lobbing crystal balls at them.
Yeah, that was great.
Like a tennis serve, I think was the way that they described it. I mean, it's just nothing but chaos, and this is when you get to one of the saddest deaths, which is the death of Fred Weasley.
Yes, that was so unfair.
And oh my gosh, I kept thinking, I was like, it's impossible for all of the Weasleys to come out of this alive because there's just so many of them.
Right, the odds are
percentage-wise. One of the people that we lose has to be a Weasley, and I was prepared for almost anybody but one of the twins.
Yeah.
Because I kept thinking, you can't take one of the twins because they're twins. You can't.
And surely she won't take both of them.
Yeah, I would have been less upset if they had taken both of them, to be honest. And maybe that sounds
Yeah,
strange.
because you feel so bad for
Yeah.
George. Because, not only is that his brother, that's his twin. So, he's devastated.
Yeah. And, I mean, they're all devastated. And you get another message from Voldemort sometime around now where he's saying that he's going to give them time to bury their dead or mourn their dead or something. And that they have an hour to turn in Harry Potter. I think this is when they give him an hour, and then after that, the next time that he talks to them, he tells Harry that he's going to be waiting in the Forbidden Forest. But you also find out that both Lupin and Tonks have died.
Which, was so not fair because they just had a baby.
Know. And they want to they need to figure out where Voldemort is, and Harry has another vision, and Voldemort is in the Shrieking Shack. So...
Yeah, and I love when they get to the Whomping Willow, and Ron's like, oh, if we only had Crookshanks, and Hermione throws something in his teeth that he said to her in the very first book.
Yeah? Are you a wizard?
Are you a wizard or what? Because he tells her, she's like, we need sunlight. Are you a witch or not?
Yeah. No, that was pretty perfect. And so he, shoots a branch into the little magic button that turns the willow off, and they...
Well, too, that was also significant because the spell he used was Wingardium Leviosa.
Oh. See, it all comes back around. It's like a perfect circle.
He uses Wingardium Leviosa, which is the spell that Hermione was correcting him on when he said she was a know-it-all, and she went and hid in the bathroom and was attacked by a troll.
But they make it through to the Shrieking Shack, and they kind of listen in on what's going on, and Voldemort's there with Lucius Malfoy, and he tells Lucius to go find Snape, and Snape shows up, and they know that one of the Horcruxes is Nagini, and Nagini is being kept in this like magic sphere. It's very protected.
Yeah.
Because at this point, Voldemort knows that the ring and the locket are gone, and the diary. So he's pretty confident that the diadem is safe, and he's keeping Nagini as safe as he possibly can. And
Ron and Hermione have a brilliant idea after they find this out.
Yeah.
And Harry can't find them. And somebody says something, they said something about a bathroom, and Harry's like, what? And he never occurs to him until they finally show back up with an armload of basilisk fangs.
Yeah, well, that was after this, though, because they were with him when they went to the Shrieking Shack, weren't they?
Yeah. It was after they got back.
Yeah. But they're listening, and Snape shows up, and Voldemort says, I'm having problems with the Elder Wand. And Snape's like, no, you've performed magic, wonderful magic with it. But let me leave, and I will go and bring Potter to you. He keeps saying that over and over. He needs to leave and go get Potter, and Voldemort's like, no, Potter will come to me. He'll be here before the night is out. And he's like, no, I think I figured out why this wand doesn't work for me the way it should. It's because I didn't win it. You were the one who defeated Dumbledore. And so this is never going to work as long as its allegiance is to you. And just like that, he kills him.
Yep. Unnecessarily, might I add.
Because he's got it completely wrong. But we'll get to that later. And they changed the way that they did it in the movie. I mean, the way that it happened in the book is that the sphere thing that Nagini's in kind of comes down and, like, engulfs Snape. So now Snape is stuck inside this magic sphere with a big old snake. I would freak out. That just does not sound like fun at all. And Nagini, like, attacks him and everything else. But in the movie, it was oh gosh, it was so violent. I mean, not that the sphere thing isn't violent, but like Voldemort actually does some sort of spell that like slits his throat, and then Nagini attacks him over and over again, and it's like this really pounding, like he's falling against the wall, and it's ugh.
And Voldemort leaves, and Harry rushes in, and he gets this memory from Snape.
Yeah, because he's bleeding, but then he's also there's this other stuff that's coming out of him, and it's a memory because Harry's gotten really good at recognizing what that stuff is after the past couple years. And
well, as much time in a pensive with Dumbledore as he had.
But so they take the memory, and they have to leave Snape behind because what are they going to do? And let's see, it's all starting to run together. There comes a point where Voldemort, like I said before, he tells Harry when he's speaking to the whole school, like he does, that you've chosen to let people die in your place. So I am waiting in the Forbidden Forest. If you come to me, I will quit attacking, and this will all be over. And Harry feels incredibly guilty because he's seeing all of these people who have been so injured and the people who have died. And he starts to feel like it was all his fault, which is ridiculous.
And that's what it is.
But he goes up to Dumbledore's office and decides that he needs to see these memories because partially because he wants to know what was so important that Snape wanted to tell him, and number two, he just wanted to escape for a while.
Yeah, this is where he loses Ron and Hermione because they don't go.
Yeah, they've disappeared. Now, shoot, where did they get the diadem? That happened previous. Maybe we skipped the diadem.
No, they didn't get it yet. I don't think, because he loses Ron and Hermione here, and it's not till after they get the basilisk fangs and destroy the cup that they find the diadem.
I don't remember.
Because Ron and Hermione are with him when he figures it out. He finds them, and they tell him about the cup, and then they go to the Room of Requirement. And then that's where Ron and Hermione decide to make out, and Harry's like, yeah, is this really the time?
Yeah. Yeah, because the diadem was in the Room of Requirement, and Harry had actually seen it, had actually touched it before.
Yes.
When he was trying to hide his potions book, he hid it inside a cabinet and found this old bust and put that on top of the cabinet and put a wig and a tiara on top of it so it would be more distinctive. Yeah, the tiara, that's the lost diadem of Ravenclaw, which happens to be a Horcrux.
Yeah. Like I said, one of those things that she just kind of drops in there. Oh, by the way, Harry put this funky little tiara on this thing. Remember that.
And
it'll be important.
Then Draco and his cronies meet up with them in the Room of Requirement and try to stop them, try to attack them. And it's actually Crabbe who gets a little carried away and starts using Fiend Fire.
Yes. Okay, now here is one of the changes they made in the movie that irritated me because I thought it was pointless. Mm-hmm. They go through this whole scene in the Room of Requirement with the fire and them flying out on broomsticks, and then they stabbed the diadem with a basilisk fang, and I'm like, no!
Oh, yeah.
They're not supposed to do that. When they get out, the diadem disintegrates, and Hermione realizes that was fiend fire.
Which was another thing that could destroy Horcruxes.
Right. I mean, the thing just basically disintegrates in Harry's hand, and he's like, what?
Yeah.
And Hermione's like, oh my god, that must have been fiend fire. I'm like, why did they change that in the movie?
I don't know.
Why? That was one of those changes that I just thought was pointless, that they could have done the way it was in the book, and it would have been fine.
Yeah, I don't know. But
that was, I mean, like I said, some of the changes they make I can understand and I can go along with as far as it goes, but that was one of the ones that really just crawled all over me because I was like, there was absolutely no point to do that way.
Oh well. There's several things in the movies that they did. But one thing in the movies that they did really, really well was The Prince's Tale. Oh my gosh. Okay. So before we had to backtrack and now we're back to where we were before. Harry goes into the pensive to see the memories that Snape has left for him. And he finds out that not only were Snape and Lily, his mom, friends when they were at school, but they were really, really good friends, and Snape was desperately in love with her from the time when they
Yes.
met when they were like 10 years old. And he had already started getting involved in the dark arts, and she tried to stick up for him. She tried to stay friends with him, but their friendship pretty much dissolved that fateful day when he called her a mudblood.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when she had had enough. And she basically said, you think that about everybody who is of my birth, so why am I any different? And he's trying to explain to her that she is different, that he cares about her and she doesn't care. And see, here's the thing, is that if he hadn't gotten involved in the dark arts and he probably had a lot of pressure because of being in Slytherin and everything else, but he would have had a chance with her because
Yeah.
she was really good friends with him and had been for a long time. And she
defended him
yeah,
for a long
and she didn't like James Potter for a long time. She thought that he was an arrogant little toe rag.
and he
And he
kind of
kind of
was.
was, not going to argue there. And so you see all of these things. You see where Snape had heard the prophecy and he thinks that it referred to Lily's son. And he was afraid that Voldemort was going to kill them all. And so that's when he appealed to Dumbledore. That's when he switched sides in order to save her, specifically her. I mean, I don't think at that point he really cared about James or Harry, but he wanted to save her. And of course it doesn't work. Because he had tried to make a deal with Voldemort too, which is why Voldemort didn't just immediately kill Lily, which was always something that was kind of strange, because he just killed James without a second thought, but he told Lily just to stand aside, and she wouldn't.
Right.
And that was why. It was because Snape had tried to bargain with him, but he didn't care enough to really follow through with it. And he basically pledged his life to trying to protect what was left of Lily, which was her son, but he was also still plagued with the fact that he looks just like his father, who was, his arch nemesis.
But he had his mother's eyes.
Yeah, except in the movie when he didn't, but whatever.
Yeah.
To me, that was another one of those things that was pointless and irritated me to no end, because you spend how many books and movies saying that Harry has his mother's eyes, and then you hire a little girl actor who was adorable and played the part perfectly, but had brown eyes? I mean, that's a worse sin than having Daniel Radcliffe with blue eyes, okay?
Well, yeah, it really was. And, I know it would have been dreadfully expensive to do it with Daniel because he was in so many scenes, but they could have digitally changed the little girl's eyes.
Or get a different kid.
No more than she was in there. If they were dead set on that kid, it would have been a few clicks of a mouse to give her green eyes.
Or, I mean, and you couldn't really do green eyes at this point because they would have to be the same as Daniel's eyes were. As long as they were the same as his, because he had his mother's eyes. So even if they weren't green, if they didn't go along with that route, they had to at least be blue. And they were as brown as anything. And that bothered me so much. You cannot spend 7 or 8 movies saying he has his mother's eyes, and then when you see his mother, she has brown eyes. You can't do that! Except they did.
Yeah, well, too, I read somewhere that originally they were going to have Daniel Radcliffe wear green contacts, but they irritated his eyes, so he didn't wear them. Even though, on the cover of Chamber of Secrets, I think it is, one of the movies, the front of the movie is kind of misleading because Harry looks like he has green eyes.
It might have been Chamber because that cover was very green, so it might have just picked up some of the green and just looked green. But that just irked me to no end because that was such an important thing and everybody kept saying it, and then anyway, the whole reason that Dumbledore trusted Snape so much is because he understood where his loyalty came from. And then you get to the point where you see that Dumbledore, when he had injured his hand from trying to handle the Horcrux, Snape was the one that saved him, or at least contained the curse to his hand so he would have some more time. Instead of dying immediately, he had about a year left. And not only did Dumbledore know that Draco Malfoy was assigned to kill him, but he told Snape
not to let him do it.
To do it for him.
Which is why Snape made the unbreakable vow.
Yeah. I mean, that was just one of those revelations that you go back and forth with this character so much. Okay, he's really unlikable, but he's not a bad guy. Well, now he's a bad guy. Now he's kind of a good guy. Now he's really a bad guy. Oh, wait, no, he was doing all that bad stuff on Dumbledore's orders. Well, crap, okay.
He's a double agent. Yeah.
And so you also find out that the whole thing with Harry and protecting Harry was because Dumbledore knew that Harry had basically become a Horcrux.
Mm-hmm.
And that Harry would have to die and Voldemort would have to be the one to kill him. And
Snape seems all offended by the fact that Dumbledore's like, you've kept him alive so he can die at the right time.
You've raised him like a pig for slaughter. And there were a couple of lines right in there too that were lifted right from the book, and I was really, really pleased. But and Dumbledore he says, tell me that after all this time you finally care about the boy. And Snape's like, and he casts his Patronus, and you see that it is the Silver Doe. And that his Patronus was the same as Lily's Patronus had been, because he still cared for her so much. And it was the same Silver Doe that Harry saw in the forest when he got Gryffindor's sword.
Right. Snape took it and put it in the pond.
Because he knew there had to be an act of valor or an act of bravery or something in order for the sword to be found. But yeah, okay. Oh my gosh. And that whole scene in the movie, okay, Lily's eyes aside, we'll just ignore that part. But the whole way that it was put together, and I loved the little boy that played Snape as a little boy. I thought that he was perfect, and I really cannot say enough good things about Alan Rickman. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't had as much to do, really. I mean, Snape's character in the movies was pretty much the same thing. I mean, kind of one-dimensional the whole way. He was always kind of the same dark, brooding, angry kind of character. But you really got to see the different colors and the different depths of the character in this set of scenes. And it was just brilliantly done. And I'm saying this not just as an Alan Rickman fangirl, which I am, but because it was awesome.
It really was. I mean, there was nobody else that could have played Snape.
Nope.
But anyway, you go through all of this, and finally Harry realizes how the Hallows are supposed to be used. He realizes he has to go into the forest. He has to meet Voldemort, because that's just the kind of person Harry is. While he might be slightly offended that Dumbledore basically did raise him like a pig for slaughter, he realizes why it's necessary, and he realizes that he can't let anyone else die if he can prevent it.
Right.
So he finally realizes how to get into the snitch. He has to,
He has to be prepared to die.
Yeah.
But
open at the close.
But before he makes it to the forest, he wants to leave without telling anybody goodbye, because he doesn't want to. He doesn't want anybody to stop him, and he just thinks also that it'll be easier that way. Now, they did change that in the movie. He does get to say goodbye to Ron and Hermione, and it was heartbreaking. As soon as Emma Watson started crying, I almost lost it. I was like, okay, just keep going. But in the book, he runs into Neville, and he says, there's something I need to go do, which is the understatement of the year. And, but just in case, kill the snake. And Neville's like, okay, we'll kill the snake. And so off Harry goes into the forest. And, he finally is able to get the resurrection stone, because he could only get it out of the snitch when he was ready to die. Which is really sneaky of Dumbledore.
Mm-hmm. But also very Dumbledore.
Well, that's true.
So he gets the resurrection stone. He turns it over, and he sees Lupin and Sirius and his parents. Is that it?
That's it.
Lupin and Sirius and his parents. And he apologizes to Lupin for, him having to die when he and Tonks had just had a baby. And basically, they act sort of like Dementors, or not Dementors, Patronuses.
Sort of, yeah.
Because there's Dementors flying around in the woods. So he gets there, and basically he's under the invisibility cloak. And he has worked out the whole Elder One thing. But he doesn't explain it until later.
Right.
But he's under the invisibility cloak. They think they hear something. He stops. And they're like, we thought he would come. And Voldemort's all like, I was sure he would come. What's going on? And Harry's like, oh, by the way.
I'm here. Hi. How you doing?
So, Voldemort zaps him. And then we get King's Cross.
Yes. Another scene I think that they did pretty darn good in the movie.
Yeah, they did a good job in the movie with this.
But, yeah, Harry dies, basically. And he is, he wakes up in this very white, shiny place, and he doesn't know for sure where he is, but he does know that there is this weird, like, bloody, scabby, nasty-looking little baby-like thing, which, ew, in the movie, ew, that was gross.
Yeah.
But then he looks up, and there's Dumbledore. And Dumbledore explains that he's not really dead. Well, I mean, Harry's not really dead. Dumbledore's dead.
Dumbledore's
but that he was kind of, sort of, in limbo, sort of. And that part of it was because, and he puts it together and it's really hard to explain, but that when Voldemort used Harry's blood to resurrect himself, he thought that he was getting past the protection that Lily's blood had made for Harry. But what he was doing was basically tying Harry's life to him, so that now Harry can't die because part of him is in Voldemort, sort of, kind of.
Sort of like they're each a Horcrux for the other.
Yeah, basically, in a way. And so Harry is tethered to life. And in the meantime, he says that this place kind of looks like King's Cross Station. Dumbledore says, well, basically, here at this point, you have a choice. You can, get on a train and go on into the afterlife, or you can go back and continue fighting. Well, that's not the thing you say to Harry Potter, because you know what he's going to do.
Yeah, he's going to go back.
But,
it's Harry Potter, and that's what he does.
But, and Dumbledore kind of breaks down a little bit, because he says, I was such a fool. I was so blind when it came to Grindelwald and my family, and when it came to you, and I made some bad decisions, but it basically it is what it is, and this is where we are now. And there's this point where Harry decides that he is definitely going back. And my favorite quote in the entire series, and they kept it in the movies verbatim, it made me so unbelievably happy, is the part where Harry asks him, is all of this real, or is it just happening in my head? And I think I mentioned this one on our quotes episode too, because it's my favorite thing ever. When Dumbledore looks at him and says, of course it's happening inside your head, Harry, but why on earth should that mean that it's not real? I'm like, yeah, I know. And they kept it in the movie, and I was so happy.
So yeah, Harry goes back, but continues to play dead. And Voldemort comes to.
Yeah, because apparently he was knocked out when this happened.
Well, I kind of get the impression that they were both dead until Harry decided to come back.
Oh, maybe that was the case. I never thought of it that way.
I think, because Dumbledore said that they were, their lives were tied to each other. If Harry had decided to go on, Dumbledore would have woken up because he didn't want to go on.
Well, yeah, okay. Look, because Voldemort wouldn't have died because he still had a Horcrux too.
Right, he still had Nini to pull him back. But for that moment, for that time, I think they were both actually dead. Or in limbo, whatever. Yeah. But anyway, they send someone to check and see if Harry is dead. And the person they send is Narcissa Malfoy.
I love this part.
Who realizes that Harry's alive, but instead of ratting him out, she wants to know if Draco is in the castle, if Draco is alive. And Harry says yes, so she tells him that Harry's dead.
Mm-hmm. And that's such a big turning point, not just for Narcissa, but for that whole family, because especially when Voldemort was living in their house, I think it suddenly really hit home to them that their family was more important than anything that Voldemort had to offer. And they had spent so much time trying to protect each other and to protect Draco. I mean, right from Half-Blood Prince, when Narcissa's trying to do everything she possibly can to get Draco out of having to do what he had to do, with the unbreakable vow and everything else. It was a really big turning point. I think she started there. Lucius was taking a little bit longer, but she started right there, realizing that she needed to do whatever she could to protect her family. And if that meant going against Voldemort, if that meant that, none of that mattered. What mattered to her was taking care of her son and her husband.
Well, she's a mother. She, was pregnant. She carried Draco. There's a connection there that you don't really have with the father.
Yeah.
So, to her, it was like Draco was the most important thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I think, she did what she did. And she said, he's dead. And Hagrid carried him to the castle.
Yeah.
Which was so
sad. Oh gosh, I felt so bad for Hagrid, because he thought that Harry was dead, and they had captured him, because we didn't know where Hagrid was at this point either. But they had captured him, and they decided that he would carry Harry in because that would make it really good and visible. Ugh. Yeah. They're such horrible people.
So he's carrying Harry and sobbing and crying because he thinks Harry's dead, and then they get up to the castle, and Harry gets set down, and then Harry, disappears.
Well, there's the thing that happened with Neville, and Voldemort basically announces that Hogwarts is only going to have one house, and they don't need the Sorting Hat anymore, and Neville had kind of come out to confront him, sort of, and he puts the Sorting Hat on Neville and then sets it on fire.
Yeah, that was a
little... Whoa, okay. But
excessive.
because, number one, because the Elder Wand is still not really responding to Voldemort, the body bind curse wears off, the flames go away, and Neville pulls out of the Sorting Hat. Oh, look, it's the Sword of Gryffindor.
Yeah. And, eventually he uses it to chop off Nagini's head. But that's not the only reason why his curses were wearing off, as Harry explains, because Harry basically made the same sacrifice for all of them that his mother made for him.
Right.
And that protected him. Voldemort's magic couldn't hold against him.
And not even... Now, I don't know if Avada Kedavra would have worked as much, but, like, he was using the Cruciatus Curse several times, and he did on Harry, right, when they both came back. And Harry was like, it didn't hurt. Because, like you said, the same magic applied. And there's several wonderful moments during this part, because the fight finally ends up in the Great Hall. And you have dueling happening all over the place. But one of the most well-known and the most celebrated duel happens between Bellatrix Lestrange and Molly Weasley. Because Bellatrix was going after Ginny. And after everything that Molly has been through, you don't go after her baby girl. Oh, no. No, not my daughter, you bitch. Yeah, and they kept that in the movie, too.
Yes, I was so glad they left that.
My theater cheered at that line.
I'm pretty sure the one I was in did too. I think we all.
And so she kills Bellatrix. It's like, yeah, you do not mess with a mama bear protecting her cubs. You do not do that. And it was such a wonderful moment for Molly, because she's been kind of passive. I mean, she's a very boisterous kind of person, but you don't picture her being a fighter so much.
Even though she's a pureblood, she comes from a very old pureblood family.
Yeah. But then you have the big confrontation, the big showdown, the one we've all been waiting for.
And can I just say I like the book version better than the movie version?
Yeah, I do too. Most people do.
I don't understand this whole Harry and Voldemort jumping off the side of the castle.
That did not make one lick of sense.
I was like, what are we doing?
No. And then having the final confrontation being another Priori Incantatem. and being in the middle of a courtyard with nobody around. What? No, that does not work. But
Oh.
anyway, so you get a lot of your, villain monologuing and a lot of explanation as to what happened. And the big thing that happened was the reason that Voldemort would not be Master of the Elder Wand is because he thought that Snape had been the one to defeat Dumbledore. But the truth was...
Well, he was under the impression that you had to kill the wand's previous master, not just disarm them. And he thought that since Snape killed Dumbledore, then the wand was Snape's.
Right.
But it turns out all you have to do is disarm them. And the person that disarmed Dumbledore
was Draco Malfoy.
And then Harry
disarmed Draco.
So Harry was actually Master of the Elder Wand.
Right. And because of all of this, and there's a bunch of other things that are said too, like he says that Severus Snape was never yours, and they talk about a bunch of other things that had happened, but that was the main thing right there, was that you cannot command the Elder Wand. You cannot hurt any more of these people because of the sacrifice that I made to help all of them, and the Elder Wand is mine. And so Voldemort shoots off an Avada Kedavra, and Harry shoots off a very simple Expelliarmus spell, and Voldemort's doesn't work, and Harry's does, and the Avada Kedavra rebounds and kills Voldemort. Bada bing. He's gone.
Yep, all the Horcruxes are gone because Neville killed the snake, and, Voldemort technically killed Harry.
Yep.
And because Voldemort keeps saying, but you didn't die, you didn't make that sacrifice, and he's like, but I was willing. Mm-hmm. I intended to, and that's what made the difference. Right. And Voldemort still cannot comprehend that. Uh-huh. That's the one thing that and Harry tells him, try for some remorse. Even at this point, Harry's trying to give him a chance.
Mm-hmm. But, he was doing it, but you knew that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
But then that's it. And there's another little tiny part in the end of this book here, and we've been talking for way too long, but I don't care. But there's a part towards the end where everything's happened and everybody's sitting in the Great Hall, and everything's still really, really confusing. And Luna comes over and sits down next to Harry, and she's like, if it were me, I would want to have some peace and quiet. And she's like, I'll distract him, and you can sneak away. And then she just jumps up and goes, oh, look, a blubbering humdinger. And everybody's probably like, what the heck? And she makes this little distraction so that Harry can go upstairs and lay down because he's had a busy day. He's just had a couple things he had to take care of. But I love her so much. She's so cute.
Yeah, and he takes Ron and Hermione, and they go up to Dumbledore's office, and I love how he says that the statue looks a little punch drunk. And he's like, I don't know if it'll respond to passwords anymore, but can we go up? And it's like, go ahead.
Sure.
Why bother now? And he goes in there, and they talk, and all of the headmaster portraits applaud Harry, and he talk to Dumbledore's portrait, and he tells Dumbledore that, he's not going to use the Elder Wand. He wants to put it back in Dumbledore's tomb, and that, he liked his wand better, so he uses the Elder Wand and actually repairs his wand. And he says, if I die without, being disarmed or whatever, then the power of the Elder Wand dies.
Right. And he also says that thing that was in the snitch, meaning the resurrection stone, I dropped it in the forest, I don't know where it is, and I'm not going to go look for it. I hope that's okay with you, because that's the way it is. And Dumbledore agrees, yeah, that's for the best. He said, I am, however, going to keep the invisibility cloak, just because.
But yeah, you can't really hurt anybody with that. Well, you can, but it's not the invisibility cloak that does it. It's you.
Right. But,
so,
yeah.
And he's like, Dumbledore's basically like, I wouldn't have it any other way, the cloak's yours. Mm-hmm. So, and then we get, a lot of people didn't like this, but I really liked it. And that's the 19 years later.
Epilogue, yeah.
Which, by the way, I got to thinking about it. I'm pretty sure that 19 years later will be in 2015.
Yeah, there's a Facebook group somewhere that's talking about that date, and that there's apparently going to be some kind of meetup or something at King's Cross Station because that's when Harry Potter was supposed to be taking his kids to Hogwarts or something like that. I don't know.
I want to go.
Well, I do too, but it's not going to happen. But no, I
if I win the lottery, I'll buy you a plane ticket.
But no, I really liked the epilogue because it didn't tie up everything. I think that was mostly what people were upset about because you knew that Harry and Ginny got married, you knew Ron and Hermione got married, and they each had a couple kids, and you.
Neville and Luna.
Huh?
Neville and Luna. Did they not do the Neville and Luna thing, or is that just my imagination?
Neville and Luna was kind of hinted at in the movie, but that was not in the book. Okay. No, we found the only thing that we found out in the book was that Neville was teaching herbology.
I can't give a professor love.
Yeah. But and you do see Draco and his family. He's married and has a kid too. But really that's all you see. You don't see any of the other characters. And I think that was mostly what people had a problem with, was because they wanted to know like what happened with Luna and what happened with George and what happened with insert other character here. They wanted to know more than what she gave us. And I can understand that. But at the same time it was really nice to see that, you know, these people who had gone through so much were now living happy, normal lives. And I loved how, you know, one of the kids was asking, why is everybody looking at us and why are they pointing? And Ron's like, oh, it's me. I'm really famous.
Yeah.
You know, so obviously he hasn't changed in 19 years.
Yeah, and I love when he tells his kid, yeah, so if you're not in Gryffindor, we'll disinherit you, but no pressure. And Hermione's like, right!
But you also find out that Harry has named his youngest son Albus Severus, after two of the greatest headmasters that Hogwarts had ever had and two of the bravest men that he had ever known. Which is a really sweet gesture, but that is a really big mouthful of a name for a 12 or 11-year-old.
Albus Severus Potter.
Yeah. I mean, if that's not a name that carries a whole lot of implications. Oh.
But, you know, it's funny, he tells him that, you know, his youngest is so worried about, what if I'm in Slytherin? What if I'm in Slytherin?
Yeah. And he's like, it's okay.
And Harry's like, it's okay. The Sorting Hat will take your choice into account. Yeah. Really? Yeah, it did for me. Which is something he hadn't told his other children.
Right. Well, maybe they didn't need it as much. They were confident enough, but little Albus needed some extra reassuring. But,
well, they didn't have, you know, James telling them they're going to end up in Slytherin.
Yeah.
Yeah, he named two of his kids, James and Lily.
Actually, it's James Sirius and Lily Luna.
Lily Luna.
That's not in the book, but that was in something that came out afterwards. That was how I knew that Neville didn't end up with Luna. He actually ended up with Hannah Abbott.
Really? I wanted him with Luna.
Luna is with somebody else who's kind of not anybody we ever met in the books, but with someone who's also kind of a free spirit like she is, and they go off tromping through the woods looking for things. Yeah. And let's see. Oh, no. Draco's wife is Astoria Greengrass, who wasn't really in the books that much. She was mentioned maybe in passing once. So he didn't end up with Pansy Parkinson, which everybody thought he would. But it sounds like he had a change of heart and she never did. So, you know, I can't remember. I want to say that George ended up married to Angelina Johnson.
I like that because I love it when he's like, "Oi, Angelina, want to go to the dance?"
Yeah, but because there was something, I can't remember where it was now, but it was like a handwritten, like, not family tree, but sort of, that was showing kind of where everybody ended up, that J.K. Rowling had put out. And I don't know whatever happened to it. I could try and find it, I guess. If I find it, I'll put it in with the show notes too. But yeah, because it was really cool, just all the little connections and stuff. But I think that's probably going to do it for this episode, because that's been it. You know, Harry and his friends live happily ever after. The end.
Can I say I so wanted her to say in that, you know, 19 years later part that Harry was like a famous Quidditch player and so was Ginny, but
Well, actually, I think she did say that Ginny did play Quidditch, professional Quidditch. Harry never did. He became an Auror.
But why do you need an Auror after Voldemort's
Well,
dead?
there's other dark people. I mean, they're not as bad, but they're still. I mean, I don't think everything just became wonderful just because Voldemort was dead. There were still bad people out there that needed to be rounded up.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, we're gonna stop now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is our tribute and celebration to one of the best book series ever written, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
In mine.
so this is happy 15th anniversary to Sorcerer's Stone. This is happy anniversary to the release of Deathly Hallows. It was also Daniel Radcliffe's birthday a couple days ago, so happy birthday to him too.
And J.K. Rowling's is the end of this month.
Yeah, her birthday is.
So happy birthday to
yeah, her birthday is the 31st, which is why that's Harry's birthday in the books.
Yep.
So there you go. Lots of things to celebrate, but mostly we're just celebrating because we love these books so much. And if there's anybody out there who hasn't read them yet, I know there are still some of you. If you have listened to any of these at all and you haven't been completely spoiled for it, go and read these books because they are amazing. And
post-haste.
Like we said, they are something that actually lives up to the hype. I know that sounds almost unbelievable because of the amount of hype they have generated, but they do, and they are wonderful. But if you want to contact us, say anything about Harry Potter or anything else about the podcast, email bibliophiles.podcast@gmail.com, Twitter @BibAnonPodcast, or our official website at www.bibliophiles-anonymous.com.
Yep, and next time we will be able to tell stories about our trip to Chattanooga.
It'll be so much fun.
Yep.
But until next time, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.